Hello everyone, it's Tana. Welcome back to the channel and another video for the Rabbit Hole Designs. Today we're working with the May release and we're going to go through the items I have here really quick. Those sequins are so pretty. They're these little flower shaped cups. Some regular sequins and some tinier cup sequins. Super pretty. Super spring-like. Then we have the Hippo Botanical. And I have two stencils, the Build Your Garden stencil and the Amanda stencil with these beautiful leaves. And today we're going to use three of those. Oh, and the one-line flower stamp set. I don't know how I missed that. It must have been when I was going on about the sequins. The one-line flower I love. I think that flower is so adorable. So we're going to pull in a little bit of most of these products today. First, I'm going to start by centering my hippo in his beautiful lotus flower. I can't speak now. And I just centered it on a piece of my Heffy Doodle alcohol-friendly paper that I've been using when I color with my Copic markers lately. You can use whatever you like to color on, depending on the coloring medium. I did it in a nice, crisp black image, and I made sure I stamped it enough times for that to show up because I want this to look like a stained glass window. Everything on this card is one-dimensional today. I will say that there are certain things you could do to make it look more like a stained glass window, and I'll get into that in a second. But I wanted to point out that I'm shading, but I'm not shading. Since this is a stained glass window, or supposed to be, I'm using solid colors, but I'm taking 3 or 4 of each color family so that it will look like shading in a sense, but I'm not doing every individual tiny spot with shading. Like I'll pick 3 or 4 spots for the darker pink, 3 or 4 spots for the middle pink, then 3 or 4 spots for the lightest pink, and I'll keep going like that until I have the entire flower colored in. After I have the flower colored in on that image, I decided I wanted to start drawing out the lines for my window so I could get a sense of what it was going to look like. So I started out with 1/2-inch lines all the way around the 4 sides of the card, and I made sure they intersected at each corner to make a square. And I used a archival pen for this, so it was alcohol marker friendly. I then went in and found the center of the 2 sides and went out from there, measured out from there to make another square on the sides and then the top and bottom of the card, so that everything was centered out from the middle of the paper. It was then that I decided I wanted to add some lotus leaves, so I'm going to put those in. I used the same stamp and just turned it the way I needed it. So I put 2 in the top, and then I split this whole section off so it looks like 4 sections with the lotus leaves, and then the hippo centered in the middle. I did end up adding 2 more lotus leaves on the bottom, but you don't completely see the entire leaf. It comes out from underneath the flower. So as I was saying, you could do even more to make this look like a stained glass window. I did play around with the idea of laying a piece of acetate over the entire front of the card and using black, I think it was chalkboard black, I can't remember the name of them, Nuvo vintage drops, to try and copy the lines that would be the lead lines in the window. But I didn't like the way it looked, mostly because my hand shakes a lot when I'm trying to do something like that. So I just decided to leave mine the way it was. I just made sure to add in some thicker black lines, like with the lines separating the inside square there. So there are my bottom 2 lotus leaves. I was going to cut out some of the coloring for you guys, but this whole first card is basically coloring, so I wanted to show you how I did it. I originally went in with the water portion of my window and used B4, and I liked it, but when it came to coloring in the frame around the outside edge of the window, I thought it was too much of the same color blue. So I will go in and change that by coloring right over it. I added some rectangular lines all around the frame of the card. And then I cut out a little tiny 1/4-inch square from a piece of masking paper and just centered it onto each of those 4 corners using my craft tweezers and traced it, went around it with my black marker, and then colored that in. It was the easiest way to do that. Fitting a ruler in those tiny squares was just too difficult. And this is where I started to color in the frame and realized there was too much of that same blue. And now you can see what I mean. That's when I decided to go in with a darker blue for the water portion inside the center picture. So I took my B28 and just colored right over that B4. But I left the lighter blue around the frame of the card. So now that that's all done, I'm going to take my double-sided adhesive and I'm going to place that on a fog card base. And I put no sentiment on this. I just left it the way it was. So on to the second card. For this card, I'm going to make a Mother's Day card. And I want a strip going straight down the middle of my slimline card. I'm going to use the leaves, the Amanda stencil with the leaves. But I wanted a strip down the center that I could place things and maybe a sentiment or a die cut on. And plus, this is a slimline, and of course the stencil is 6x6, and I'm going to show you a way that you can extend that stencil out, but the only way it was going to work is if I wasn't doing the entire background, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So I went over that first with a layer of Distress Oxide in Mowed Lawn. I did cover my stencil with pixie dust because I was going to be doing a lot of ink blending. And then I went in with my Rustic Wilderness and went over the leaves on the stencil. So I did hold it in place, but the pixie dust did work, pixie spray I should say, did work pretty well this time. I did find, however, whenever I use that pixie spray, I get little tiny hairs and stuff stuck to my stencil, and then they end up in my ink blending, and it annoys me. Sometimes they get stuck in my blending brushes. So I did the top and the bottom. Before I even move the stencil, I'm going to get that all done. And now I'm going to line up the bottom first. The stencil is made in such a way that you're able to line up, if you're going end to end with the stencil, you're able to line up that leaf that comes out from the edge. So I did that, ink blended it, and then I did the same thing on the top. I lined up that leaf so that I could extend the stencil out to the rest of the slimline card. But if you look at the bottom, right now you can see what I mean. It wouldn't have worked if there was no separation in the card. So now we're going to carefully remove that tape. Even the low tack rips the cardstock sometimes. And here I'm showing you, I took the flower from the one-line flower stamp set and I stamped out 6 of them, colored 3 different colors, 2 of each. So I'm going to glue down the 2 pink ones first. Then I glued down the 2 teal ones, and then I popped up the 2 purple ones in the center of those 2 flowers on each side with foam tape. Then I took a die cut from my stash that says Mother, and I die cut that from 2 pieces of 100-pound cardstock and then a piece of holographic cardstock. Glued them all together and placed that in the center. I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of that panel, and I'm going to trim off the excess of the flowers that hangs over the edge. And I'm going to adhere it to a white slimline card base, and this slimline card measures 4 by 8.5. And that's it for this video, guys. Hope you like what you saw here today. Stay tuned later in the month. I'll be using more from this release. And don't forget to sign up for the Rabbit Hole Designs emails so you can have lots of inspiration and notifications on the next releases. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye for now.